What's up, everybody? I'm Chef Eddie Jackson, and today is all about game day. We're gonna be making some spicy meatballs in Calabrian sauce. Now, this recipe is especially perfect for game day because it's quick, it's easy, and everybody's gonna love it. Trust me. Let's get started. First things first, we're gonna get working on the sauce because that's the main component. I gotta get some herbs. I got a little basil going on right here. I got some parsley. This sauce is gonna have tons of flavor. I don't know if you ever had Calabrian chilies, but these bad boys pack a big punch, perfect for game day. So I wanna get everything organized. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and get started on my parsley. And this is flat leaf parsley, right? So we're gonna use about a tablespoon. So what you wanna do is, let's get rid of these stems right here. And what I like to do is just do a fine chop on them. The key to having a successful game day is you want to get everything prepped out. So when all your friends and your family come over, you can just hang out and you're not stressing to get things done, right? You want to make sure you have a fine chop on all your herbs because once you put it into the sauce, it needs to go all throughout it, right? Make sure you get a fine chop. Kind of like this. Perfect, right? There you go. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and transfer this guy right into here. Don't leave any parsley behind, trust me. All right, so I'm gonna get started with my basil, and what I like to do is do a chiffonade. Sounds fancy. It's really not. I'm gonna show you how to do it. Very, very easy. That's gonna give you fine cuts. So basically what you do, you just line them up like that, right? Layer them. And the easy way to do it is just to roll like this. Just roll it up, the tighter. My grandmother used to do this back in the day with her collard greens, and I don't think she knew it was chiffonade, but as I've gotten fancy, as she calls it, this is a chiffonade. So after you have it all tight, all you want to do is just run your knife through, very, very thin, like so, and it should just fall apart like that. So again, we're using about a tablespoon of that fresh basil. So I have some garlic. We're gonna use about 3 cloves of garlic, right? So the easiest way to peel garlic is to just give it a good smash, like so. And the garlic should just come right out, like that. So I'm gonna get working on these other 2 here. Again, just a good smash, right? I absolutely love garlic. I use garlic a lot. It's a flavor enhancer. It's not many things that I make that I don't use garlic in. And always make sure you check your garlic. Garlic is one of those things where you buy it and you just leave it laying around. You don't want to see any black spots on your garlic. So as you can see with this garlic, it's nice and perfect. No black spots. That lets me know it's ready to go. Now to chop it, what you want to do is you want to also give it a smash. Basically, you want to break it down. This is how I like to do it. I'm going to do one for you. So get it as smashed as you can, and then what I like to do is just run my knife through it. And another good trick that I like to do to make sure that it's finely minced, I like to run my knife through it like this and just give it a good push like that. And just keep pushing it down to work it out. Did I say work it out? Yeah, work it out. And then you just keep going until you get a very fine mince on it. Everybody has their own tricks. This is just something that I like to do. And you can just keep going and going until you get the consistency that you want. Just keep pressing it down like so. And basically what you're doing is squeezing out a lot of that oil in there, and it's allowing that garlic to really break down. Now you can see how finely minced that garlic is, like so. Now normally I would do all 3 at once, but I want to do one to really show you how easy it is. So don't be intimidated by it. See how easy it is, guys? All right, so I'm gonna put this one to the side. I'm gonna do the same thing for the other two. All right, so I got my other two finely minced. I'm gonna just run my knife through it one more time, just to make sure I don't have any chunks. I love garlic, but I don't like chunks of garlic. Perfect. I think that'll do. So take my garlic. Let's get him right in the cup. All right, so I have my basil, my parsley, my garlic. Now I gotta add my shallot. I love using shallot because they're a little bit less aggressive than an onion. Think a mix between a white onion and a red onion is how I like to think about it. Has a little sweet note to it as well. And you kind of do it the same way that you would do an onion as far as peeling it and cutting it. So I'll show you how to do one here. So I'm gonna take this shallot, I'm gonna take the outer layer off. And what we're gonna do is a fine mince on this. So you wanna leave the root on, right? Like so. What I'm gonna do is just get in there and cut it like this. And then I like to go right halfway, like so. And then we just fine mince it. And there you have it, fine minced shallots. We're gonna do the same thing with the other side. Make sure you leave that root on. All right, so I'm gonna take my second, remember, root side. Just gonna go in there. And as you can see, I'm not crying, so that lets you know that this shallot is a little bit less aggressive than an onion. So again, I just like to take my hand for support, and then what you wanna do is go back. And obviously, the tighter your cuts are, the finer your mince is gonna be, depending on what you're making, right? If you feel like your cuts aren't tight enough or your pieces are too big, don't be afraid to just go back through. It's gonna go in the sauce. It's just gonna melt away anyways. So you can go back through if you want. But I seem to have, see, I got one piece that's a little bit too big. So it's no problem to just go back through and just break it up. All right, so I got my shallot all minced. I'm just gonna transfer this to a bowl here, hopefully. All right, so let's clean up my station here. All right, so I got everything chopped and minced. I got basil, I got parsley, I got garlic, I got shallots. I know, you're waiting, right? Now it's time to actually build this sauce. So come with me over here. So I have a saucepan on. Let's go ahead and get it cranking. There we go. Now we're playing with fire. All right, so I have my pan over medium heat. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil to that. We're just looking to coat the bottom and wait for that oil to shimmer just a little bit. So what we're gonna do is throw in our onions, and that's gonna let the onions sweat and bring out some of those natural sugars inside the onions. And that's how you build base flavors, right? You should hear a sizzle when you drop the onions in if you're doing it right. That's what you wanna hear. So let's get those onions in. Always, always, always salt your onions. That's gonna help bring out some of those natural sugars. So, gonna throw in my salt. Let's give this a mix. You're looking for those onions to come translucent. There you go. Something about onions when it hits your face, right? Just wakes you up. I remember growing up when we used to grill, my dad used to throw onions on the smoker. Wasn't even any meat on there. And the neighbors used to come down and knock on the doors like, what y'all cooking? My dad was like, we just got some onions on the smoker. Perfect. So I have some San Marzano tomatoes. That's the good stuff. Nice and sweet, they're fresh. If you can get the good stuff, especially when you're talking about canned tomatoes. So what you want to do is go ahead and get these tomatoes in here. And whenever you add tomatoes or anything, you always want to season at every step. So I get my tomatoes in here, and what I like to do is just go ahead and add the remaining salt. So let's go ahead and get the salt in there, because tomatoes need a little help. Got sweetness going on, but other than that, not too much. Perfect. One of the things that you have to learn how to do in the kitchen is have to learn how to adapt. So right now I'm looking and I feel like my eye is a little bit too aggressive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this to another eye because I want this sauce to cook very, very slowly and really develop all of those flavors. So I'm gonna cut this one off and go here. There we go. Because you really want this to cook like over medium to medium low heat. And that's gonna allow all the things we're gonna put in here, those fresh herbs, basil, parsley, garlic, shallots. I got some more goodness coming in here as well. All right, so sometimes when you're using canned tomatoes, you get some pieces that are a little chunky. And what I like to do is just take a simple potato masher and just go in and just kind of break it up just a little bit. Now, I'm not looking to make the sauce extremely smooth. I just want to break up any of those clumps that's inside. I mean, this thing isn't just for a potato masher, right? Let's make use of it. All right, like so. Perfect. That should be good. And that's the consistency that I'm looking for right there. Slightly chunky, but we got rid of all those big lumps that's inside. Good. So I have some chicken stock here, about a ½ cup. I'm gonna go ahead and add my chicken stock in. Perfect. Remember, every time you add something, you always wanna give it a good mix. Make everybody happy in the pot. All right, so remember all that hard work that we did? We're chopping up that basil, that parsley, and that garlic. They're about to join the party. They're gonna get involved. All right, so we have our parsley, right? Let's go ahead and get this parsley in. That basil that we chiffonade. And of course, the garlic. Remember, we added more stuff, now we gotta mix. Everything should be nice and incorporated. This is kind of what you're looking for. And a really good tip is, you never really want to add your garlic with your onions because garlic burns very, very quickly. I always like to add my garlic to wet, or if I'm making a sauce, I get my tomatoes in or my chicken stock first, and then I add my garlic. All right, so I'm gonna cover this. I got everything incorporated, nice and mixed. Now we just gotta make everybody happy in the pot. So I'm gonna cover this. All right, so I got everybody in the pot in the sauce. They're coming together. We're just gonna let this hang out covered for about 20 minutes. While that's going, I'm gonna get started, prepped and ready for my meatballs. Let's talk about the meat that I'm gonna use. This is actually lamb. Don't be afraid of lamb. It's good, it's nice and gamey. Doesn't have a lot of fat in it, so we're gonna give it some help with a few ingredients to really give it a little moisture, right? So I have some lamb right here. What we're gonna do is add in some eggs, some panko. I have some mayo, secret ingredient. I'm gonna tell you why in a second. So first things first, right? Let's prep our ingredients for this lamb. So, eggs. I know you've heard it. If you haven't, I'll tell you. Never crack your eggs on the bowl because you have a tendency to get shells inside of the bowl. I like to just go right on the counter, whatever you want to do, but just never right over the bowl. Again, right there. You don't have to worry about any shells. And we're just going to give this a quick little beat. And the egg is gonna work as a binder once we start adding in all of our ingredients. And it's also gonna keep these meatballs together. Perfect. So we got our eggs beaten. I'm gonna grab some green onions. So again, with the green onions, I wanna cut these very, very fine because I want them to basically go throughout the entire meatball and not just in one area. So how I like to do is I like to cut the tip off. My grandmother would get mad if I didn't use that, right? She always said, you gotta use it from the rooty to the tooty. I don't know what that means, Grandma, but okay. So I like to cut my green onions very, very thin. And I like to take it all the way down as far as I can, as close to the whites as I can. Like so. Like that. I'm gonna do a few more. And with green onions, to make it easier on you, I like to just work with a few at a time. A lot of times, you know, if you have a big bundle of them, it's harder to cut. So I like to just go with a few at a time. And again, that's just personal preference. That's what I like to do. I think it's easier for me. And I think that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's get these onions in. If you notice, I'm doing all of my prep before I actually get started on my meatballs. That allows everything to go a lot quicker. A lot of times, you know, you throw an egg in and now you gotta cut up your green onions. You gotta be organized when you're in the kitchen. It's called mise en place, right? Trust me, it makes everything a lot easier. So we got the green onions, we still have our cilantro, we got some parsley, and we gotta do some garlic as well. So let's grab our cilantro. I love cilantro. So same thing like we did with our parsley, we're gonna do the same exact thing with our cilantro. I like to start off with a small bunch just to make it more manageable, right? Kind of get it all together. And as I cut, I like to pinch it together. That's gonna allow me to get a fine mince. And again, just bunch it back together. Some people don't like cilantro. They say it has like a soapy taste to it, but I've never experienced that. I actually absolutely love cilantro. Very fragrant. Has a nice sweetness to it as well, I think. So just like we did our parsley, we're gonna add our cilantro right here. A little bit of that cilantro right there. All right, so I have some parsley, just like we did for our sauce, right? Now I know this is coming together very, very quickly, but trust me, take your time. It doesn't matter. So if I'm going too fast for you, feel free to pause your video. It's not a big deal. Trust me, it's still gonna taste good. And that's what's important, right? So I got my parsley chopped. Well, see some pieces that still need a good chop on it. That should be good to go. So again, we got our eggs prepped out. We got some green onions. We got some cilantro. I got some parsley going on. Now I just got to get my garlic. Boom. I know it seems repetitive, but this is a very key step, is to get everything prepped and ready. So that way, once you get started, you don't have to stop. You can just dump and go. So remember how we talked about the garlic and the sauce. Again, just a quick press. Get rid of that skin. Remember, we're just gonna start with one just so you can see. And all we're gonna do is just give it a press. Good smash. And we're just gonna run our knife through it. And once you get to a good consistency, remember, I like to use the back of my knife to really press it down, expose all of those oils inside the garlic. And that's gonna allow us to get a very, very fine mince. And again, we're talking about incorporating this into meatballs, so you wanna make sure that it's very fine, or else you'll be left with chunks of garlic in your meatballs, and that's a big no-no. So one more time, we'll show you again. So it's getting there, just give it a good press. And you can actually see some of those oils when you press. You can see how oily the garlic is right there. You're on the right track when you see that. That was good. So that's one, and I'll go ahead and do the other three. Last one here. Oh, I really smashed that one. Good. So again, we're just gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna add these to the ones we already have and just smash all of them. So we're getting to the point to where it's kind of getting minced, and at this stage, what I like to do is just go ahead and start pressing it down. All right, so I can smell my sauce. I want to go over here and check it. Let's see what we got. Perfect. This is exactly what you want right here. So you want to make sure you keep it covered, because you still want it to have some consistency, right? If you don't cover it, it's going to start to reduce down. It can get very, very thick. So I still want it to have a little liquid to it. So I think our garlic would be good. Let's give it one more good press here, like so. There you go. You can see it starting to really come together now. So take a look at that. Perfect. Good press, like that. Good, so you can see there's still a few large chunks in there, like this one right here, that one. So I want to give it another mix. Don't rush it, take your time. Labor of love is what they call it, right? I think we should be good to go right there. Let's go ahead and get this garlic in. All right, so I got everything prepped out. Let's go ahead and clean this station, because it's about time to get started on these meatballs. So I have my lamb, and the good thing about meatballs, especially for game day, is you can literally just dump everything in, give it a good mix, pop it in the refrigerator, and put it in the oven right before the game starts. And that's why I especially love meatballs for game day. So we did all of that work. We got our eggs, our green onions, parsley, cilantro, garlic. We're just gonna dump everything in. So first things first, I'm gonna add my eggs. Remember, 2 eggs, and I have about 2 pounds of lamb, ground lamb. So I'm gonna add some panko, and that's gonna be the binder and help keep everything together. So it's gonna be adding a lot of ingredients in here, so I really want it to stay together. So I love using panko. It's a little bit more coarse, and I think it has better texture than any other breadcrumb. And it's gonna absorb a little bit more. So I have some green onions, right, that we chopped up. Literally, we're just gonna dump everything in here and give it a good mix. Remember, cilantro. Parsley. It's a lot of ingredients going on in these meatballs, and they're gonna be fantabulous. Yeah, you heard me right. I said fantabulous. That garlic. And I have a little trick when I make my meatballs. I don't know, I can't remember when I started doing this, but I started to think, and I was like, how can I add something to my meatballs to make sure that they stay moist? Mayo. When you think about mayo, it's basically just oil. But I absolutely love mayo. I'm from the South, so anytime we can get a little mayo in there, we sneak it in. So I'm gonna add some mayo in here as well, because remember, this lamb is very, very lean, so it definitely needs some help. All right, so I got everything going on in my meatballs. I'm gonna add some milk, just a little bit. And that's gonna also help to keep the meatballs nice and moist, right? Because like I said, that lamb is very, very lean. Now we gotta get to the spices. These meatballs are gonna be packed with flavor. I got a laundry list of spices, so get ready. So I'm gonna start off with some cumin. Very nutty, has a depth of flavor, using a lot of Mexican cuisines and things like that. I live in Texas, so I love cumin. We're gonna go down with some turmeric. Another rich spice as well. Ginger is gonna give it a little bit of a pop. A lot of people don't realize that ginger actually has some spicy notes to it as well, and I love using ginger. I love cooking a lot of Caribbean cuisine, and they use a lot of ginger in their cooking. So we're gonna go in with some salt as well. Lamb needs a lot of help, doesn't have a lot of flavor, especially when it's ground, so you need to add some salt to it. So we have some paprika. I told you it was gonna be a lot of spices. Some black pepper. Just a little bit of cayenne, because remember we got that spicy sauce, so I don't want the meatballs to be too spicy. I like spice, but you gotta have a little bit of balance, right? So I got some cloves. A little bit of coriander. Coriander and cumin are almost like cousins, right? Both of them have similar traits, but I think you need both of them in this recipe. And then just a little bit of nutmeg goes a long way. Trust me. So you only need a little bit. Now we got all of our spices in. All right, so I'm gonna get started on my meatballs. Let's go ahead and get our oven preheated to 400 degrees. One of the best things that my grandmother ever told me is that the best utensils in the kitchen is your bare hands. All right, so what I'm gonna do is get in here, get everything mixed. And the key to a good meatball is you don't wanna overwork it. And all we're doing is just mixing until everything comes together. It's already smelling good. You can smell that cumin, that coriander, and just that little bit of nutmeg is really coming through. Perfect. Remember, don't overwork it. All you're looking is to see if everything is coming together. I'm starting to get there. You can kind of see every ingredient that we put in, all that garlic, all that parsley, all that cilantro is starting to get incorporated. So what happens if you overwork your meatballs? They can get very tight. What you're looking for is a nice, soft, moist, so when you cut into it, you see every single ingredient that you put in. We gave this lamb a little help with a little bit of mayo, a little bit of that milk, so we should be good. And I think we're right where we need to be. And another key is, it's like when you're working in a bowl like this, and you're mixing, you want to be able to see the meat, the ground meat, come off the sides of the bowl. And that lets you know that your mixture is right where it needs to be. So if you can see, when I grab it, it comes off the side of the bowl, like so. So that lets me know that it's not too wet, it's not too sticky. We've added enough PANKO as a binder so that when you grab it, see? We're perfect. All right, so let's get cleaned up. We're touching raw meat. We're gonna scoop these meatballs out on some parchment paper and pop them in the oven. All right, so my hands are all nice and clean. I have my meatballs. And what I'm gonna use is a sheet pan, and I have it lined with some parchment paper, and that's gonna allow the meatballs to not stick, right? You don't want the meatballs to stick. It's just an ice cream scooper. It's gonna make scooping these meatballs very, very easy. And you're looking for about 2 ounces, right? So what I like to do is, once I scoop, I like to just go around the edge of the bowl to make sure I have a nice flat surface, like so. See how easy that was? Who thought this was just for ice cream? Ha ha, meatball scooper is what it is. All right, so we're gonna scoop the side, should be nice and flat like so. I'm gonna get working on these meatballs. We got a lot to roll out. How about you go ahead and pause your video and get started on your meatballs, and then we meet back here in say 15 to 20 minutes, and we can put this whole dish together. Sounds like a plan? Let's do it. All right, friends, welcome back. You should have your meatballs all rolled out and your oven preheated to 400 degrees. Now it's time to pop these meatballs in the oven, and I'll meet you right back here in about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, so it's been about 15 to 20 minutes. If your kitchen smells anything like mine's, you know that these meatballs are ready. Let's get them. Oh yeah. Nice and golden brown. Check those out. You can just smell that cumin, that coriander, that nutmeg is just perfuming off of these meatballs. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a bowl. Remember, we made that delicious Calabrian sauce. Well, let's get our meatballs in the bowl because we have to combine them with that sauce we made, right? So they go in. Oh, it smells so good. Remember, these didn't take a long time to come together. And the tip is you can actually make these meatballs the day before and have them in the refrigerator and then just bring it together right before the game kicks off. And they'll be a little bit more flavorful because everything inside has had a chance to really marinate and come together. A few more here. Perfect. All right, so all the meatballs are in, and as you can see, we have no issues with the meatball sticking because we use that parchment paper. It's your friend. So let's get rid of this pan. All right, so now it's time to combine the meatballs with the sauce. All right, and what I like to do is take about half of that sauce, like so, and we're gonna toss the meatballs in it. So just give it a good mix. Actually, I like to just mix it. Perfect. All right, so there you have it. Now it's time to plate this guy up. Yeah, I like to use these little toothpicks. And that way everybody can just grab their own individual meatball. So what you want to do is just want to line it on your serving tray. What I like to do is just make sure you have a big enough platter. So we're just going to line all these meatballs up. You can just smell all those ingredients that we put inside these meatballs. I mean, very fragrant spices, nutmeg, turmeric, cumin. Perfect. So this is always a favorite whenever I have people over for game day. It's easy to make. Everybody loves them. I mean, why not have meatballs on game day, right? So let's not waste any of that sauce. I mean, that's goodness right there. All over. All right, so remember we have about half of that sauce that we used. So let's go ahead and coat the meatballs with the remaining sauce and just spread it around. Make sure everything is nice and coated. The only thing left to do is to get in here and make everybody happy. One for you, one for you, two for me. So one of the key things to remember is this recipe can be done ahead of time. You can make the meatballs ahead of time. You can make the sauce ahead of time. And the benefit of that is it allows all the flavors to come together. Think of it like meatloaf. Meatloaf is always better the second day, right? All right, so I think I got every single meatball. And what I want to do is just finish off with some pops of green. So remember, we still have some of those herbs that we use, some of that cilantro. All right, so I just want to add a little bit of green to this. And again, this is strictly optional, but I always like to have pops of color. And it's the same thing that we actually have going on in the meatball. So it's not a foreign herb, right? We use the cilantro in this dish, so it's totally fine to use it as a topping. Same way we chopped it, nice and fine. And all we're gonna do is just go over the top. I know what you're thinking. Man, that was really, really easy. And that's the beauty of this dish. Lots of flavor, but easy to do. All right, so I have my eye on this one meatball right here. I think I'm gonna go in for a taste. So delicious. That lamb is nice and gamey, but then we added all those aromatics. I can taste the nutmeg, the cumin, the cayenne is giving it a little bit of spice. But that Calabrian sauce we made is giving it just a pop of heat, but not too much. It still has some sweetness to it as well from those San Marzano tomatoes. This is ridiculous. Friends, this is so delicious. I hope you enjoyed cooking with me. And even on game day, if your team doesn't win, this is definitely a victory. Come back and cook with me soon.